Hello, welcome to my first video of 2020. So today I thought I'd have a look at how you can use ordinary thin cutting dies with your GoPress and foil. And depending on how your die's been designed, there's various results you can achieve. They'll all work in some measure, but some will give a more pleasing result than others. So recently I've found I've got in my stash, and I think this is a die that came with the magazine, I've got this lovely bird, and it's got, so if you can see on the tail here, I might have to zoom in. Oh, that's better, right, and get it to focus. Yeah, you can see on sort of the tail around the wing there are cutting lines, but they don't cut out, they just cut the detail into the die cut. Okay, so I thought, well, what's going to happen if I foil that and then cut the die? So that's kind of where I started. Okay, and then other things you can do if you've got die sets like this, perhaps. Whoops. Okay, this is a dragonfly die, and that cuts out completely on its own if you use it on its own, but it also comes with an outside edge to mat it onto. So you could foil with that one and then cut out with that one, because if you just foil and cut out with this, you don't get much foiling left because you've cut all the lines you're foiling on. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm going. And then towards the end of the year I bought some dies, and I'm just trying to figure out where on my table I've buried the actual die. Oh, there it is. Some dies. I've got lots and lots of detail cut into them. Okay, and I had a go with those. And if you just foil it, you get that, which is quite pretty. But I'm not quite sure where on a design I would put it. Okay, but if I cut it out using the die, because they're cut lines, they are cut, but I've foiled and then I've cut. So let me get the camera to focus on that properly, and you can still kind of see a glisten of the foiling, just highlighting those cut lines. I quite like that. So there's an idea. Have a look through your dies, have a look how they've been designed. So have they got detail lines on them, that kind of thing. This one was from the same set. It's a vintage typewriter, and when I tried that, I got a lovely highlight around all the letter keys. So that was quite good. And then other things you might have are, now these are quite distinctive, and it comes with an inner part as well. Okay, so that kind of die set where you get the outer frame and then the inner part with all its detail. So when I've done that one, I've foiled it and cut it out, and I've done this on some purple mirror card, and I've used a sparkly foil, so you get that pattern. Okay, so let's have a look, because it's been a bit of a journey of discovery, this. Okay, so let's start with the bird. I've not done a sample of the bird this morning, so that really will be a journey of discovery. I'm going to use some, I think it's called chocolate copper, this colour foil. Let me just make sure I've got a piece of foil big enough for what I'm foiling. And then I'm going to put my bird onto my GoPress and foil. So let me get the GoPress and foil over. I realise that some of you might have only just had your GoPress and foil for Christmas and might not quite know what you're doing with it. Now, there are longer introductions in my beginner guide videos. So if you haven't discovered those already, just have a look through the videos on my channel. They do have their own playlist as well. And I go really in depth on those. Okay, so my GoPress and foil, which is sitting over there. Okay, so it's plugged into the mains, and then the hot plate slides in and out. Okay, and when you put it on, you want to make sure it is slid together okay? And when you first turn it on, the light at the back, well, first of all, you press it to turn it on. It will come off solid red, and then you press it and it flashes red, and then eventually it stops flashing red and goes to a solid green, and that means the hot plate is heated up, okay? So I'm working at arm's length over here. So I'm going to pull the hot plate off and put the die on it, because that's going to be easy for you to see in that position. Okay, so there we have it. So I've got my bird here. Okay, so that needs to go on, and that will need to warm up 20-30 seconds maybe. And while it's warming up, I put it back on the base. Okay, so that's going to warm up, and now this has gone back to a flashing red light to say that it is actually sending heat or activating the heating element within the hot plate. And when it's ready, the green light comes back on. I'll find my piece of card. Okay. So I'm just waiting for that to go green. There we are. And then I'm going to pull it off and add my foil. Now, usually if I'm just doing this for myself, I don't keep pulling the hot plate off. That's a big piece of foil. There we are. Make sure I've covered the die. That's better. My piece of card. And then I need some card shims. I've been experimenting a bit today. I think the optimum number for what I'm doing at the moment is 3, but for some of the things I did, I got down to 1, and for some I went up to 5. So that should be hot enough, because I've not been off the base for very long. But if you're not sure, pop it back in. So I'm going to push it back into the base, and sure enough, it's gone back to flashing red. Now I know you can't see that, so do have a look if you're not sure at my beginner's guide videos, because I have everything repositioned so that the camera can see the lights and everything on those. Okay, the light's gone green. Let me just see what the camera. So I'm going to slide this off. I'm going to roll it through my die cutting machine. Okay, now let's have a look and see what we've got. So there we are. I've got my bird. Get the camera to focus on him. There we are. I've got my bird. You can just see you've got the fine lines. Now I can colour that, and the foil will act as a resist. So that I should still have that detail, and then I'll cut it out in a moment or two as well. So that's my bird, and that's the basic technique. So as I say, there's lots of ideas. One of the other developments that's been recently is normal cutting dies, but with embossed detail on them. So you see it's got raised areas, and the idea is that when you die cut, they press into your card and give you some texture on your die cut. Okay, but you can foil with them. Okay, don't always get perfect results, and because they are a thin die and there's not much difference between the height of the raised bits and the base level of the die, you can quite easily get over foiling on them. Okay, but when you foil it, and cut it out, you can get something really pretty like that. Yeah, so let's have a go at that one. Now I think these were, this particular die was an Oakwood Archer one, and I bought it quite recently, and I bought it on Hachanda. So you might still be able to find it, but keep a lookout because it's a trend that's kind of coming in, adding this deboss detail rather than leaving holes that get embossed. Okay, so I've got that. I need some foil. I did have some here somewhere. There we are. So I've got some sparkly foil. And I'm not being very careful about trimming my foil because I'm going to cut this out. And there we are. So it's sparkly on one side. It's kind of a dull silver on the other. So it goes sparkly side down. Okay, and then my piece of card, and I'm using a piece of this lovely blue mirror card for this. Now, because these are broader areas of foiling, when I did this earlier, I found I actually needed 5 card shims, so 5 pieces of card on top. So I'm going to put that on, and then I'm going to make sure this is all nicely warmed up. Okay, so while I'm doing that, let me cut out my bird. Actually, I colour him first? Yeah, let's colour him first. Got the perfect thing. I've got some distress ink in Vintage Photo. I've just got a bit of distress ink and a water brush. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to go over the edges because I'm going to cut him out, so I don't have to be careful. And there will be areas I want darker than others, so I'm going to put those in first. And then I can gradually blend the ink out for the lighter areas. You might want to put more detail in with feathers and things, but I'm just doing this really quickly. Whatever colouring medium you want, really. Anything water based, the foil will resist. If you use alcohol markers, it will colour your foil, but you'll still get the shine. So there we are. Try and pick up some light on that. Come to focus as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to dry before I cut it out. And I've just noticed I've missed a bit. Right, so my GoPress and Foil has been warming up. So let me turn the camera. And I'm just waiting for the red light to stop flashing. There we go, it's gone green, so now everything's at the right temperature. There, so I could feel as I was rolling there that I'd got more resistance because I've now got all these card shims in here, but I wasn't having to force the handle to turn. I could still turn it smoothly. Okay, so lots of pressure there. Might have been too much. So let's peel the foil. And actually, I think that's worked really nicely. Okay, so now I just need to cut that out with the die when it's cooled down a little bit. Let's move that over there. Okay, and then the next one I want to show you is, now I did this. Get the camera to focus. So let me just put this away. Back on the base so it'll stay hot. Okay, so can you see I've cut this tag out and I've just used a set of nesting dies. Okay, and I've got a very thin foiled line just to highlight on the inside. Okay, and how I've done that is I've used my die that I cut out with, and then I've used the next size down to do my foiling, but I've done the foiling first because that's easier. Okay, but because this is an open frame die, you know when you die cut an open frame die you need less pressure than if you've got a very intricate one. Well, it's the same when you're foiling. If you've got something that's just very thin line and they're a long way apart, yeah, it doesn't need very much pressure at all. And not only doesn't it need very much pressure, but I've found that if you have too much pressure, now I'm going to zoom the camera in now, because this, okay, if I have, let's try this end, that's it. Okay, so that's coming to focus. Now that's the fold line on one where I had too many shims, and in lots of places it's actually quite dull. You can, you know, you can see there's a line there, but it doesn't really shine. Okay, whereas on this version, I'll get this to focus. Too close. There we are. It's much shinier. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So when I did this, the camera battery's normal zoom. When I did this one that I've cut out, I only used one shim. Okay, because if I used any more, my foiling went dull. Okay, it's different to when you're doing something like this, because you've got quite close lines together. Even the cutting edge around the outside means that you need more pressure by the time you get in the middle here for the detail. So I'm going to do that one next. So I'm going to put my die here. I'm going to put that on my GoPress and Foil so it can be heating up ready. Okay, but while I'm waiting for that to heat, I'm going to cut out my little bird here and my other little bird here. Is that dry? Not quite. And here's a tip. If I've done something like this with a water brush and I want it to dry quickly, I just put it on the closed lid of my GoPress, and there's enough heat there to gently dry it quite quickly for me. Okay, so where have I done my bird die for this one? Okay, so do be careful to line things up. Okay, now with any luck, your pressure has left a dent in your card, and your die will kind of slot into it like that has there. Okay, so you might want to just kind of feel it into place and then definitely tape it down. In at least 2 places. Okay, I've got that. I'm just going to trim this a bit. Shall I? No, I'll use the big die cutter. So there we are. I'm just going to cut this out of my die cutting machine. Push that out. Yeah. Come on, focus. There we are. So there's our bird. Well, there's that bird. And then I'll cut the other one out as well. So I've not got so much help with this from the foiling to help me line it up. So that's partly why I took my colour in over the edges. So I want to really be able to look and feel and see where I've got that in place. I think that's it. Can't see any foiling, which is quite important. I want my bits of tape again. Okay, and then that needs to be die cut. So I just pulled this out. Oh, there's a card, and then there we are. Let me get the camera to focus on this. Ah, there we are. So you get these. Oops, sorry, I've dropped it. You get these odd glints of foil coming through. Obviously, it works better on some dyes than others. Some colour combinations better than others. But it's there. I'm having trouble getting the camera to pick up the light on it. You can see it on the tape. Oh, there we go. You can see that. So when you've got that on a card, it's subtle, but it's there. Okay? So, number 2, little bird. Let's go back to our little tag that I was warming up. Okay, so that is nice and hot. Okay, oh well, I need some foil. Ah, I've got some foil. Got some of my sparkly foil. Okay, and a piece of card. I need some card. Bear with me a moment. Okay, I'm going to do that on this kind of minky Easter coloured cardstock this time. Okay, it's a pearlescent card. So let's see how that works. So this is nice and warm. got my foil. I'm going to put that over the top. I'm going to add my card. Again, over the top, nicely centred. So I want to make sure I can cut out with a bigger die. And then I want just one card shim. Okay, and my card shim have generally got foil on them. So that goes in there. Now that is nice and hot. I've been fairly quick doing that. So I'm going to roll it through the die cutting machine straight away. Move the card shim out of the way. Put this up. Just going to put this out of the way. Okay, so this is just going to be a very thin line. It's a very thin glittery line highlighting around there. So then I'm just going to cut this out with the bigger die. Let me just do that. Tape. So I always tape things down when I die cut them. Let me take that back to its normal zoom. There we are. Way. So there we are. Just put a very fine highlighted line around the edge. Now, Kajir Creations and other manufacturers are starting to do dies that cut and foil at the same time, or where you get a foiling plate and a die set with them, and they'll produce a thicker line, a more prominent line for you. But if you haven't had chance to add some of these items to your foiling collection yet, and you're using your normal cutting dies, then there's options. Yeah, I'm just trying to give you some ideas. So let's just do a recap. So we've got our bird. I do like, and I say, these new dies they're starting to bring out that have got, I've buried the die again. Where have I put that? Oh, there it is. Right, that have got these raised parts on them, these debossed details. They work particularly well, although they're not specifically designed for foiling. So, right, if you look at the bird's head there, yeah, around the top there's some overfoiling, and that will be the tendency because there isn't enough difference in the height. Okay, so that's that birdie, and then you've got ones with the fine lines on, like that, or like my gramophone. Works really well on black card because it really stands out. Okay, I've buried stuff on my desk. Or you've got this style of die where you've got very detailed cut in part, and then you've got another die that cuts out. Okay, and I've done this. Okay, and I pulled out some more dies from my collection that would work in a similar way. I think that's a tattered lace die, and that would have come with a tattered lace magazine 2.5, 3 years ago. So as I say, I'm not showing particular dies that you're going to be able to go out and buy. I'm just giving you ideas of how you can go through your stash and look at what you've got that you could perhaps use to add some foiling to your projects. Another tattered lace die. Oh, this is comes with a bigger version as well. So you've got that, so you could foil that part and then cut out with that part. Okay, and if you have a look through my videos, you'll find one that says how to foil using the backs of cutting dies. Now, and if you do that, using that kind of die, because if you look, the back also has a lovely pattern because of the way it's been made. It's not a flat plate. There's lots of detail in that as well. Then you could do that version. Okay, but that's a separate video. Go and have a look at it. It's one of my early ones, so you'll need to scroll back through all my videos to find it. But lots of ways you can use the backs of cutting dies. I've used strip dies. I say these particular ones really lend themselves to it. But it does have to be a symmetrical die. That means that if I put this together with the cutting edges of both facing up, obviously it fits because that's how you'd normally use it. But if I turn one of them over, it still fits perfectly. Okay, so that's a symmetrical die. It won't work with something like this. This is nearly symmetrical, but not quite. So again, it's got quite a nice pattern on the back. But it's not symmetrical because if I try and turn this round, the cutting die won't quite fit. Okay, so you couldn't do it with that one, but you could do it with that one, because that one I can have them both like that, or I can turn one round and it still fits in exactly the same way. Okay, so lots of ideas for you there. I hope that's helped. As I say, I love using proper dies, hot foil plates, cut foil dies that are designed for foiling. But you can also have a lot of fun with your normal cutting dies, just getting creative in how you use them. Okay, thank you for watching.